request Shaurya Anand, who is the Chief Marketing Officer of IP Pro, and he can talk a little bit, so maybe you can come and introduce, and IP Pro is one of our affiliates. Thank you.
Thank you. Should I just click? Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being with us today. Thank you, Nishit Bhai. IP Pro is primarily a patent support services company, which is incubated by Nishit Desai Associates. It's a brainchild of Nishit Desai and Sam Petroda, a very well-known technocrat, and in his latest capacity was advisor to the Prime Minister in the Manmohan Singh government. Very quickly, I want to just give you a quick, brief idea about what IP Pro does, and then we'll move into the presentation. We're primarily a patent support services company, and we follow what we think is more of a hybrid model as opposed to just outsourcing stuff and hoping for the best. Through our experiences that we've had collectively, we've built a model that essentially guarantees that what qualifies as US law or US patent law is practiced in the US, while you still avail of the benefits that outsourcing obviously gives you. So with regards to the entire the process that we go through, the initial phase where you're in the research and drafting process of a patent, we have 25 engineers in India who take care of that technical aspect. And post that, the draft is actually brought here. It is vetted by licensed US attorneys before we actually go through with the filing. And then after that, with regards to the prosecution side of things, that is entirely done by licensed US patent agents. And at which point of time, we solely provide the role of an assistant in terms of the knowledge that we have because we drafted the actual patent. So that's a little bit about IP Pro. And now moving on to the subject, the Internet of Things. Primarily, when you think about what Internet of Things is, fundamentally, it is just the ability of two devices that we use, two or multiple devices that we use through the course of the day to communicate with each other, to eventually bring us to a place where we are more efficient, we save time, and all of those good things. So in front of you, there's a booklet that has been drafted by the attorneys at Nishit Desai Associates on Internet of Things. And one of the examples over there is about, just imagine you wake up in the morning, your alarm clock goes off, and that clock would send a signal to your coffee machine saying you're up, and the coffee is brewed. Once you pick the coffee up, the coffee machine sends a message to the car saying, get the temperature ready, the person's on their way. You get into the car, and the car sends a message to the office, giving your ETA to turn the lights on, to have the computers on when you're there. That is a small example of how it can happen. Something that's happening on a much larger scale is Songdo, which is happening in South Korea, where it's one of the largest public and private real estate ventures. They have, and these are very interesting statistics, it's a $35 to $40 billion real estate venture, so one of the biggest public-private ventures there is. They are, by the time it's done in 2018, 2020, it's going to be 45 million square feet of office space, 35 million of residential space, 10 million of public space, and 5 million of hospitality space. 65,000 residents, 300,000 people commuting back and forth. There, it already has about 30 to 32,000 people living there. So that's the scale of that. And the most interesting part is that pretty much every square inch of this venture is covered by the fiber optic broadband infrastructure. So that is the scale at which this is happening. And it's great that something like this would happen. But with it, obviously, come challenges. And one of the challenges, the main challenge that you're looking at, is there are going to be multiple people who come into this. But all of these multiple devices need to communicate with each other, which brings up the topic of how do you do that. So there has to be the steps that one can take or have been taken, especially in the telecom space, is you go into SEPs, which are your standard essential patents. That is a great infrastructure, but after that comes the challenge of FRAND, which is a term that is used to, which represents fair, reasonable, and non-discriminatory terms on which third-party users would get licenses to these SEPs as they define it. If this is not done, you're in a situation where either the third-party vendors are going to be forced to infringe, or you're going to be in a situation where they're going to have to pay exorbitant licensing fees. But as we have seen with the telecommunications sector, it's tough for these companies to kind of come to terms with what is fair and reasonable. And that adds a lot of challenges. There are institutions that are working on it, and we're hopeful that in the near future, there are better solutions that are found to set standards so that the opportunities that Internet of Things presents can be leveraged to its most. With that, I wanted to kind of move into some of the challenges. At IP Pro, we work with Fortune 50 companies, but at the same time, we work with startups and SMEs. And with regards to being in a situation where you could likely infringe, or you want to try and avoid trying to infringe on somebody else's patents, you want to be in a place where you're safe. But with the small companies and startups, it may not be a big challenge for larger companies. The issue that they face is, I've just been funded, where do I put my money? Because IP is always a cost. IP is a cost for an IBM or a Samsung too. But it is a cost in a different nature for a startup because it's a challenge. Do I use this money to build my business, or do I use this money to make sure that I'm in compliance as far as IP is concerned? And there used to be a lot of merit to this. But in the recent years, with, like I said, the outsourcing model developing and people gathering intelligence and experience, these kind of studies, the FTO study or a patent landscape analysis study, is not as expensive. There are ways to get information and to get reports and analysis which can help you with your business. So just a general overview in terms of what an FTO study can do for you and for your business. It, of course, limits the risk of litigation, and you avoid unnecessary expense that may come your way if you're found to be infringing on somebody else's patent later on. It gives you the ability to kind of preempt and design your product in a manner in which you're not infringing, to ensure that you're not infringing on somebody else's patent. Opens up licensing opportunities, and you can identify different patenting opportunities too. Having said that, there are 2 points that I want to make about an FTO study and the kind of challenges that it may throw. One part is where you don't conduct an FTO study. And some people choose to do that because you could turn around and plead genuine ignorance. But that is only good enough to the extent of proving that you did not willfully infringe on somebody's patent. But if you have conducted an FTO study, yes, once you have that information, it is your responsibility to act accordingly. You may have to tweak your product, or you may have to license the product. But imagine this, if you're standing in a court of law, which side would you rather be? In a place where you put your hands up and say, I didn't know, or to be in a place where like, I knew, but I did everything that I could in terms of my due diligence to ensure that I'm not willfully infringing. The thing about FTO studies is, or any of these, is that they're ever evolving. So when you do an FTO study, you're going to have databases that we go into and look at patents that have been issued, patents that are in the process of being issued. But it's not absolutely comprehensive in terms of being bulletproof in the sense that you're going to know everything that you need to know. So if you've done it, and there's something that's a development that happens later, you can always turn around and say, I did everything that I was legally responsible to do, i.e. I'm not, there is enough proof for me to showcase that I've not willfully infringed. But these are some of the benefits of an FTO study. Moving to that, and an interesting point about this is also when we conduct a landscape study, which is in the business that we are in, intellectual property or patents specifically, this is one of the things that lends to be more on the expensive and exhaustive side and time-consuming side. I had one of my clients at one point of time, when I was talking to him about this and the importance of getting this done for the business that they were in, tell me, he said, Sharir, these sort of things are more on the lines of would love to haves as opposed to must haves. And they were in the semiconductor business, and we kind of worked out a model where we still went ahead and did the study for them. And the way it benefited them is that they actually found patents that they were in the process of. They found technologies that they were, about 60% their way into having finished their invention, but they found that the way that they had gone about it, they were actually infringing on certain patents. And what we helped them do is we worked with their engineers, and we devised a way where they invented around the patents that already existed in the market. And not only did they, of course, avoid any sort of infringement, but then the patents that they filed were later granted. So that was a success story, and it can work. So with regards to the landscape studies, while an FTO is something that you would pursue to avoid litigation of any kind of or infringement, a landscape study helps you drive R&D in the correct direction within your organization, which is pertinent if especially if you're a very product-heavy company and IP is a major part of it. The amount of monies and time and energy that you spend on R&D can be optimized this way because you drive it in the correct direction. That helps. The exhaustive nature of the study also gives you an understanding of the emerging R&D trends. So that helps you kind of look at white spaces and maybe change course. A lot of entrepreneurs, serial entrepreneurs, have these studies done with regards to specific markets. We had a Fortune 50 client of ours who wanted us to do something in the cloud space when the idea of the cloud was very nascent, to just understand what's out there or what direction other companies or competitors, where are they going with in the cloud space, to get an idea of where they can go or where they can accelerate their innovation. Like I mentioned, you can identify untapped areas of technology, and this is crucial because you can learn of potential investment areas and partners. That is to say that there may be a company that is in that business and has heavily patented a particular space. You may have something that you can either license to them, you may have something that you can partner with them, you may actually have something that makes their product better. Those are interesting opportunities, and you're looking at it not from a business standpoint, but you're looking at it from a standpoint of an inventor, which another inventor or an engineer or an person from an R&D department definitely appreciates. And like I said, competitive intelligence. So these are some of the points that I wanted to make with regards to patent landscaping, FTO study, and the Internet of Things. These are just some of the areas that we have our technical experience in. And that's some general information. I'm available over here to speak with you and tell you a little bit more about what IP Pro does. That's all I had to say with regards to this. If you have any questions or comments, we'd be happy to take them right now. Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate your time.